What's up everybody, Brian Tong here, and you are here for the big kahuna, the iPhone 12 Pro Max review. And the design is exactly like the 12 Pro, it's just a whole lot bigger at 6.7 inches. And this is still the best looking iPhone Apple has ever made to me. I mean, it has this retro but modern design. It takes cues from the iPhone 4 and 5. It just looks pretty, and a lot of the things about this Pro Max are the same for my iPhone 12 Pro review, so you can watch that as a reference. But some of the things that I said in there might be in here as well, and I won't be going through every single detail, but I will cover the big stuff that matters here. Now, when I say big, this thing is freaking big. I mean, you can probably even play a drinking game during this review every time I say the word big, because I'm gonna say it a lot. So I'm gonna use the 12 Pro as my daily driver, and I talked about how the updated squared edge design actually made it bulkier for me to kind of wrap my hands around compared to the 11 Pro. So I actually preferred kind of those smoother curved lines. And if that 12 Pro was a little bigger than I wanted, well then this 12 Pro Max is just a lot bigger than I ever wanted. And unless you've got big hands, you're really gonna have to expect to use two hands on this phone unless you have like a really, really long thumb. Because I talked about my hand span before, it is 8 inches, which is above average size, in case you were wondering. And without a case on the 12 Pro Max, like I can hit the letter L on the keyboard, but not the P or not the delete key. And then with something like Apple's leather case on it, I can't hit any of those three comfortably. I can't even reach those unless I really, really, really stretch my thumb big. So look, the screen, it is glorious. And yes, there's that notch on top of it that I'm hoping will one day go away. And the bezels are thicker than other phones, but look, if you're buying a new iPhone, you've pretty much accepted them by now, and this isn't an issue to you. I mean, look, it hasn't stopped me from buying one either, so even if it's not a great fit for me, there's nothing wrong about this design or the size of the iPhone, because this year Apple's made 4 phones at 3 different sizes, so there's really one that's the right fit for everyone. It just comes down to you. Now, I'm a 12 Pro person, you might be a 12 Pro Max person, and really the 12 Mini is arguably the perfect fit in hand for everyone without losing much. But we're here to talk about the 12 Pro Max, and this phone is just as good as the 12 Pro. But the biggest question people wanted answered is just how much better is the camera? Now, the all-new wide camera in the 12 Pro Max has a 47% larger sensor, and then a larger sensor allows more light, detail, and color to be captured. It's said to be 87% better in low-light photos and includes a new sensor shift optical image stabilization system that moves the sensor and makes this even steadier than before. That's typically found in DSLR cameras, and this would be a first in the iPhone. So, that's great and all, but the proof is always in the pudding. So let's just see what I was able to get. Now, all these shots that I took are shot straight from the camera. I'm not specifically tweaking these pictures. I'm just holding it up, taking a shot, and showing you the results, because that's what most people are going to experience day to day. So let's start with this white rose, and the iPhone 12 Pro is on the left, the 12 Pro Max is on the right. And in this picture, it's really hard to tell the difference. The 12 Pro tends to be slightly brighter, but the 12 Pro Max, at least to me, looks a little punchier with a better dynamic range on the flower, just barely. I know you might disagree, and a lot of this can really be subjective to what you like, but I'm gonna lean towards the 12 Pro Max on this shot. But both these cameras, you can already tell, are really, really good. Okay, let's take it to the kitchen, and here's a picture of deviled eggs. Yummy. Now they look pretty much identical. The 12 Pro Max is slightly brighter, but that's something that I feel like you can even just tweak and edit in post on the 12 Pro version. The details here look the same, and so does the color balance, so there's just not much difference. Now, in this daytime portrait, the 12 Pro caught some light, which I didn't realize until later, so that could really be more of my fault. You can see that there's this great separation though from Shauna and the background, but if you look at the fine details on the texture of her blue top, it's more pronounced with the 12 Pro Max. Now here's an outdoor shot from a hike I took where I found a tree with contrasting shadows, and I didn't even notice it until now, but there's this freaking lizard at the top of the picture. Do you see it? Yeah, I didn't even see it when I took it, but if you look at the 12 Pro, it was able to keep that main broken branch as the focus, but then even the lower area of the photo retained a lot more detail compared to the 12 Pro Max. So for this one, I'd take the 12 Pro in this shot. Now let's take it to the night. We love our food, so here's a Krispy Kreme hot donut sign, and when the light's on, you know what time it is. Both shots here look great. The 12 Pro Max lets in slightly more light here, but I actually like the contrast of the donut sign on the iPhone 12 Pro slightly better. That makes the sign kind of pop more like it does in real life. Now check out this. Here's a night mode portrait shot with Shauna, who I still don't have to pay to be my photo model. There are a couple things to notice here, but you can see in the background, the 12 Pro Max lets in more light, but it's also able to capture more detail with like the studs on her jacket, and even the stitching details on the collar and clothes of hers are more clearly defined. Now here's another shot in night mode that was literally completely dark. It was just lit by this turquoise blue light that I had, but everything else was dark. Now neither camera actually got the color right, but that's okay because not every shot is gonna be perfect. But the 12 Pro here made an effort to find a white balance and made the shot look a little more like a white light was hitting her, while it was also bringing in more light where you can notice more details kind of around her neck and her hair. Now the 12 Pro Max kept the shot looking blue and represented the actual situation more accurately. It wasn't the aqua blue, but the stitching details here on her jacket again are just a little cleaner for the 12 Pro Max. And finally, let's take a look at another night shot. This time, it's a video with a sparkler. Now, both of these cameras handle this really well, and at times, the 12 Pro made Shauna's face slightly maybe more yellow, but overall, these cameras handle the sparkle that pops bright white, and then the color balance very, very well. So, look, I gave you a bunch of different samples here. First of all, it's really impressive, but from that batch of images and video, my takeaways are that the 12 Pro Max, in general, tended to be able to bring out some finer details, just a little, better than the 12 Pro, and it also tends to bring in more light with the night shots. In some instances, they did look the same or extremely close, and sometimes I even preferred the 12 Pro Max. Other times, I prefer the 12 Pro. The 12 Pro Max seems to be a slightly better camera in some cases, but there just isn't a huge gap between them. And I told you, right, the cameras are already impressive as is, but I don't feel like I'm missing much from the 12 Pro I own to this. Okay, the other camera features it has is that sensor shift optical image stabilization. So I decided to test it out for myself, as well as using this rig over here that I use to place both phones on it and at the same time. So I can actually either put them vertically, I can twist these, and then put them horizontally as well. You'll see samples like this, but the main thing is that if I'm using this rig, these two phones are experiencing the same exact movement. So we'll start with this first comparison where I'm actually on this casual hike, walking at a normal pace and holding both cameras on the rig. With these two videos side by side, from what I can tell, the 12 Pro Max looks smoother overall to me. It's not by a lot, but you'll see this kind of small hitch for every step I take on the 12 Pro side. It's real subtle versus the 12 Pro Max that tends to just be smoother overall walking up this hill. Now, in the second shot, I decided to get a little more active and started jogging on this trail, but that's a lot harder for me to tell if there was really a big difference between the two cameras when they're moving around this much. There are moments that I sometimes feel like the 12 Pro Max looks smoother, and then other moments where the 12 Pro looks smoother. So it's gonna be hard for any image stabilization to really stand out here, but I at least wanted to try it out. Now this third shot is still actually using the wide camera while walking to see if there's this big difference in image stabilization on this moving shot. But if you look for yourself, I couldn't see a significant difference here either. It's just really too hard to tell. So I think really it was the first shot where I could actually see a noticeable difference in the image stabilization at work. But those are my camera tests to really just try and present this wide range of situations to get a sense of, how effective and how much better this is than the 12 Pro. Again, they're both stellar cameras, but I'd give the 12 Pro Max just a slight edge, but it wasn't nearly big enough for me to feel like I need to get this Pro Max. Now, after going through all of that, I'm pretty confident that the 12 Pro was the right choice for me, but if you're upgrading from any earlier iPhone without a triple lens system, you're gonna absolutely love the 12 Pro or the 12 Pro Max camera. I mean, they're ridiculous. Now, Dolby Vision HDR video recording is available on this phone. You'll be able to really handle your entire workflow from shooting, editing, and publishing that content with just this phone. But unfortunately, it's not as friendly with other platforms that can't interpret or handle Dolby Vision HDR video. For example, Instagram, they completely overexposed my Dolby Vision videos. Twitter can take it, but it converts it to the standard dynamic range video. So just be aware of this. I even have turned it off in my video settings just so the content that I post on social is gonna be okay. That's something to think about. But the iPhone, in a way, it's really ahead of the game here, ahead of its time even, which is good if you're in the Apple ecosystem and have all the tools to take advantage of this, but it's bad when it has to try to play with others that have to get up to speed. Now, another place where this phone is ahead of its time is with 5G connectivity. And yes, I know that they had to bring 5G because every other major flagship phone has it, but depending on your service provider, where you live, out here in the US, 5G just isn't very widespread, and it still just has a long ways to go. It's actually really hard to find it, and then once you do, if you have, even getting the optimal speeds aren't normal unless you're basically like standing right under an antenna. Now, I'm on AT&T, and I still haven't experienced 5G in the wild, so it's great if you can take advantage of it, but This is more of a feature that helps future-proof your phone as 5G gets better and more prevalent. Now, for people purchasing this phone internationally and in regions outside the US, you have to know that the iPhone 12 and 12 Pro will not come with millimeter wave 5G support, and that flavor of 5G may not even be available in those areas. So the non-US version supports sub-6 gigahertz 5G, but you won't be able to take advantage of the millimeter wave 5G in the future with the iPhone 12 Pro or 12 Pro Max if you're outside of the US. That's just something that I need to let you know. Now, this phone is speedy. The benchmarks with the A14 Bionic show that's roughly like about 20% faster or higher compared to the A13 Bionic of last year. The 12 Pro Max doesn't lag in any way, just like the 12 Pro was snappy, and it really shouldn't because these are using the same exact processor. This bigger body also means a bigger battery, and I found with day-to-day use that the 12 Pro Max easily, it got me through the day where I juiced up when I had to, like around 10 p.m. without a single charge. And I know that our usage is going to be different from one another. It just, comes down to, especially since we're staying at home more, we're just using devices differently. But the battery here is really, really impressive for my usage patterns, and I think it's one of the real highlights for this device. Now, I'm not gonna also go on another rant because I've done enough, but look, you know where I'm getting at. I'm still not down with Apple's decision to include a brand new Lightning to USB-C cable, but then not include a USB-C power adapter, because now that we had the first batch of Pro and iPhone 12 Pro and iPhone 12, everything I said about how frustrating it is for regular users who just don't follow tech closely, it's held true because I've already had a few friends call me or text me and ask me like, where's the power adapter? Why won't it work with their current one? And then I have to explain why, that's so fun, right? But this is just a confusing experience for them. And again, I have to remind you that Android phones have always, up to this point, included a USB-C power adapter to take advantage of the fast charging feature. You don't have to buy an extra charger for 19 bucks. It's just standard. So for me, that's probably my biggest criticism of the iPhone 12 lineup, just the entire one. I know that Apple's saying it's partially for the environment, but as a consumer, it's confusing people, and we already know this for a fact. I also have one small wish. I do wish, or wished, it's because it's not happening, that the 12 Pro Max, that they had offered an even beefier 1 terabyte storage option. I think that kind of gives it that other step up to be like, okay, this is really a different beast. And I know I have my personal bugaboos with the notch, but that's on me. Not all of you feel that way. A good amount of you do, but not all of you. And I'd still like Touch ID to come back on the screen eventually. I'd love a 120 hertz refresh rate display. It would have been nice, especially on this Pro Max, since it already has such solid battery life already. The tech world, I know they'd absolutely love it. Well, at least most of them would, but the general iPhone user would probably never notice. But guess what? The reason we keep upgrading, even with some of these bugaboos, is the power of the Apple ecosystem. Because trust me, if you own AirPods and an iPhone of any generation, you're not leaving anytime soon. And oh yeah, by the way, the iPhone is still one of the best phones on the market. Now the iPhone 12 Pro Max starts at $1,099 for the 128 gig model. The price goes up depending on the storage capacity that you want. The iPhone 12 Pro Max is impressive. Its camera is definitely better, but it's not enough to make me feel like I'm missing out, because trust me, I would have just made the jump and then just sucked up the bigger size phone if there was a huge difference. And at the beginning, I called this the Big Kahuna. That is exactly what it is. It is actually a little more comfortable to hold over time, but again, this is without a case, and also if I have to start messaging and typing, that's not happening. It's just too big for me, but there's just a whole lot of people that the iPhone 12 Pro Max is perfect for, and you know what? They're gonna love this thing.